If not, what are you waiting for? Please do click that subscribe button. It costs nothing and it guarantees you will see each new episode of the show and you will not regret it. Also, if you enjoy it, please do share this show with friends, family, someone on the street, the dog, everyone, anyone who you think might enjoy it. This really does make a difference to us, so thanks very much. Now, moving on. It's not always what Rebecca says, it's sometimes what she doesn't say. And last week, she was ahead of the pack in predicting the return of Catherine to Trooping the Colour, a first public appearance in months. Rebecca, this was a pretty well-kept secret. How did it unfurl?
Well, as I said to you last week, there was just something I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I suspected it was going to happen, but, you know, she is going through cancer treatment and, you know, she won't know how she feels from one day to the next. But if I'd been a betting person, I think I would have put money on it. But yes, I mean, I didn't necessarily expect there'd be a big announcement. And then on Friday, about 3:15, I got a message saying, could you be on a conference call at 4:00? And I thought, aha, I know what this is about. And it was, and we were read out the message that they intended to release to the public to her. We were told about this wonderful new picture of her. And, you know, they were stressing, look, this is not a return to work, and that was something they were very, very keen to stress. It's not a full-time return to work, but it is a signal she now feels slightly well enough to maybe dip her toes in a little bit over the coming months.
You called it.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my job, isn't it?
Scoop English over here. Natasha, you were there. Tell us, what was the atmosphere like, and what do you think having Catherine there meant to the crowd? Do you think it made a palpable difference?
Yeah, I mean, there had been biblical rain just before they came out on the balcony. So the fact that so many people were still there and so excited because they knew that the Princess of Wales was going to be there and come out with all 3 kids. I mean, people were still so excited. And the group that I was with, there were loads of scouts and kind of young children. And I mean, people were jumping up and down, you know, they were waving, and people were just ecstatic. And I was, you know, chilled to the bone from this rain. And yet the atmosphere was still, so celebratory.
Did you detect any kind of emotion on Catherine's face? Did she feel loved by the crowd?
Her smile is so wide that even from where I was standing, it just was glowing. Honestly, it's incredible. So yeah, she just looked delighted. They looked like a really happy family. It was genuinely just really nice to see.
Richard, it was reported, wasn't it, that Catherine's return to the public eye was such a significant moment that the palace was duty-bound to tell the Prime Minister and our opposition parties.
Yes, that really does make it sound serious, doesn't it? But there's a reason for that. We're in the middle of a general election campaign, and viewers might remember that the royal family have had to cancel various engagements because they can't do anything that might overshadow election coverage or also that might look favourable to one party or another. So in this case, you can imagine that Catherine's reappearance for the first time in public since Christmas Day last year was a huge event that did dominate the newspapers. It was dominated the front page on Saturday as well as Sunday. So that did kind of blow away the political coverage. So I think the Prime Minister had to be warned about that, and he let the opposition party leaders know as well.
Fascinating.
But I think they took the view that, look, Trooping the Colour, is a celebration, it's part of our national life. So I think all the political leaders were happy for Trooping the Colour to go ahead, and the fact that Catherine was part of that delighted all of them. I think they shared in the public's joy to have her back with us.
Absolutely. Rebecca, she also released a statement. What can you tell us about that? What were the sort of key points that she wanted to make?
I thought there was a really kind of moving and kind of painfully honest statement. She made a point of saying the messages that she and William have received over recent weeks and months have meant an enormous lot to them, and that has helped them get through some really tough times as a family. She wanted people to know that she is making good progress, but she was also really candid and said, this has not been easy, and like anyone who's undergoing cancer treatment will know, is you have good days and you have bad days, and on the bad days you want to curl up in a ball and lie in bed, but on the good days you want to seize life and make the most of your time with your family and children. And she said she's having to learn to be patient as well, that there is a lot of uncertainty around this treatment, and she was having to learn to pace herself. And I think in that she was making the point again, saying, look, I am going to be at Trooping. I do hope to do a couple more events over the summer, but she was basically saying to the public, please bear with me.
Yeah, no promises. Richard, we also got a new portrait. What can you tell us about that?
Well, just like Rebecca says about the statement, that it was so honest, I felt also an incredibly moving portrait. It was a photograph taken by Matt Porteous, and he loves nature, and he took a wonderful portrait of Catherine with the 3 children in a tree last year.
Yes.
And again, a tree featured heavily in this portrait, which was a weeping willow. Catherine, of course, was a student of history of art, so she knows all about the symbolism of weeping willows. There's references to grief, the fact that the pose is her sort of looking upwards very wistfully. I think it was showing sort of what an important part that nature and being at Windsor's playing in her recovery, but also I think it shows that, yes, she's not out of the woods. There's a reference to the tree and the water, and she's going through a hard time. So it was laden with symbolism, I would say.
It was very reflective, I thought. As you rightly say, looking wistfully up at the
Well, also
sky.
remember, every photograph we ever see of Catherine, she's usually looking direct at the camera, often, with a beautiful smile.
Yeah, true.
And in this case, she wasn't. And it's very moving. I would say it's probably the most symbolic picture we've ever had of Catherine.
Interesting. Now, Natasha, there's lots more we could say about Catherine and trooping, but let's move on to one of the other big events of recent days, Royal Ascot. You were there. Tell us, for those who don't know what it is, explain what it is and why it's so huge for we Brits.
Yeah, Rebecca and I were there yesterday. Thank goodness it was sunny. But yeah, it's a week in June at the famous Ascot racecourse, and it's a week that they always put on where the royal family attend. And there's obviously the normal horse racing that you'd get, but crucially there's a royal procession, and it's just really quite fabulous. The royals come, they're in carriages, horse-drawn carriages, and they sort of go around, and there's all the spectators, and people kind of take their top hats off in respect for the royal family. In my opinion, Royal Ascot is also all about the hats. People normally wear fabulous hats and fascinators, and yeah, it's just a great event.
Oh, and Richard, the King and Queen have used this year's event in quite a touching way, haven't they?
Yes, so this, the royal procession, as Natasha mentions, is really important, because what happens is the King and Queen entertain guests and friends at Windsor Castle, and then they have the carriage procession down, and it's a great honour, and it shows kind of who's up, who's down with the King and Queen.
No, it doesn't show who's down, does it? No.
Well, I think it does if you're not there, yeah. And there's a lot of importance put on this in social circles. And the ones I like, the particularly poignant this year was Lady Gabriella Kingston was in a carriage. This was on the first day as well. And I think everyone accepted that was the King and Queen showing their love for her after the tragic death of her husband earlier this year, Thomas Kingston. Yeah. So that was very significant. And there was another one as well on day 2 where there was Lady Sarah Keswick, who's one of the, they used to be called Ladies in Waiting, but they have a new title now, don't they?
Queen's Companions.
Queen's Companions. And her husband died a couple of months ago. Sir Chips Keswick, King and Queen attended his memorial service, and she had pride of place in the royal procession this week as well. So
that's lovely.
Yeah, so they've really used it as a chance to kind of show friends and family how much they value them.
Is it awful of me to say, I really do still miss, I've been to Ascot a few times, Royal Ascot, and I used to love guessing what colour the Queen would come down in, Queen Elizabeth, because she was always very good at being that human highlighter. In like day-glow orange or pink.
Well, you could bet on that as well.
Yes, you could.
And one year there was a lot of very suspicious betting, do you remember? And they had to kind of cancel it because there was a sudden rush on a particular colour.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with the late Queen. Yeah, there was a feeling that someone might have heard from somebody within the household what she was wearing that day. It was every day it was a big thing.
I love the fun facts we uncover on Palace Confidential from time to time.
Virology, do you remember last week?
Yes,
Virology.
well, we'll be talking about that later. Now, Rebecca, you were also at Royal Ascot this week. Did you have a good time? How are you feeling today?
Thanks, Joe. Slightly green around the gills.
There's no need to reveal private conversations, Joe.
I was just asking.
What
I was
goes
just
in the green
inquiring
room
after
stays
Rebecca's
in the
health.
green room. And I did win the princely sum of £4.20. So I
see, if you'd been able to see straight, you might have been able to make more intelligent bets.
I don't know what you mean, Joe. And as Natasha said, it's so quintessentially British. You go in and everybody makes such an effort. The hats are fabulous. You can see the men love being in their rented morning suits. It's great.
Well, Sophie and Edward were among those celebrating, and we know that they're very popular with our viewers.
Well, I've written a big piece on Sophie and Edward in the Mail this week, and if you haven't seen it, it's worth having a look on our website, because they're celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary this week. Silver wedding anniversary. I remember actually when I joined the Mail 25 years ago, it was one of the first jobs I was given to cover, was their wedding as a general news reporter, not knowing what I was going to go on to do.
Rebecca, you don't look old enough to have been doing it for that long.
Oh, Joe, you say the right things.
Well, we will be putting a link for that article in,
that would
the
be good,
show notes.
because I've spoken to a lot of friends of theirs about what makes them so great as a couple and what makes it work, and they really are a team. There's a lovely speech that Sophie gave about her husband when he turned 60 early on this year, and she said, he's been the best husband and the best father, and I still quite fancy him when I see him in a uniform. And I did an interview with Edward, which we spoke about earlier on this year, an exclusive one to mark his 60th as well, and he really came alive when he spoke about his wife, and I could tell that he didn't underestimate or underappreciate what she'd taken on when she married him at a time when his brothers and sister, all their marriages had just failed in the last few years before that, and it was great. And I think what was great, going back to your original question about Ascot, is that they decided to spend their wedding anniversary there on Wednesday with a load of mates. So it was a big event for them, but they celebrated it in typically understated style. They weren't in the landaus. They were just there with their friends having a great time.
Oh, incredible. Now, Richard, speaking of Sophie, you've had fun with a bit of mischief this week, haven't you, in your column? What's the funny story?
Well, we've often talked about how, what do they call it, sort of royal recycling, where usually the royal women might wear the same outfit once or twice, or in Princess Anne's case, often many times.
For 50 years, yes.
Yeah, they've been pioneers of this, is very environmentally conscious. Well, now it looks like they might even be sharing outfits, because Princess Beatrice yesterday was wearing a dress by one of your compatriots, an Australian designer whose name escapes me now.
Zimmerman. I know him well.
That's it.
Yes.
Well done.
Yes.
Princess Beatrice wore a lovely floral dress by Zimmerman, and at the Order of the Garter ceremony on Monday, very similar dress had been worn by Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh.
That's a good spot, Richard.
Now, I'm not sure if she had said, you know what, I love your dress, can I wear it on Wednesday or not? Or maybe she has her own version.
Well, it's interesting, because in my old life as a magazine editor and dealing with celebrities a lot, not royalty, you would be in so much trouble at a photo shoot if you presented a celebrity address and the publicist would say, Angelina Jolie wore that last week, she can't wear that. So it's so it's interesting that they'd be relaxed about that.
Well, I think Rebecca ought to find out, is there a royal wardrobe that they can all sort of dip into and share the same dresses?
And can we all have access to that, please?
Absolutely.
And it is all about recycling now, isn't it, and re-wearing your clothes. In fact, before we go off the subject of Royal Ascot, I was telling you guys earlier on, met loads of people when I was there on Wednesday who watched Palace Confidential. So I wanted to say, and they came up and said how much they love the programmes. Several ladies from America. So I just want to say thank you very much and keep watching.
Wow, that's so great to hear. And now it is actually time to hear some of your comments. We do love getting them. Many of you were pleased last week with our Princess Anne section of the show, and that's coming up a little bit later for any new viewers. Don't panic. Henry writes, I love Princess Anne, dedicated to her family, the monarchy, lighthouses and horses. That's quite a combo. I could not agree more. After our discussion about the prospect of the Sussexes at Trooping the Colour, Maureen Ball had this to say, I don't want to see the Sussexes at Trooping. We just don't need them. Thank you for that, Maureen. Finally, Dimwit, it's quite a name, has weighed in on the debate around whether David Beckham should become a Sir. David Beckham deserves a knighthood for having more respect for the late Queen than her own grandson. Ouch. Ooh. That one's got to hurt. Good Lord. Let's bring my panel back now. And hours before Catherine appeared again for the first time in 6 months, A friend of Meghan and Harry posted a picture of Meghan's new jam and dog biscuits. Oh dear. Richard, the Daily Beast, published an article saying it could be an astonishing coincidence, that timing, and actually quoting a friend of Catherine's as saying, "You just have to ask yourself, who would set out to ruin a cancer sufferer's day? It is absolutely pathetic." Gosh, those are strong words.
They really are, aren't they? I should say that the Daily Beast subsequently published another article saying that Meghan hadn't intended, the timing wasn't intentional at all. But I think
it was a third party, wasn't it? It was a friend of her. It wasn't her.
But I think let's explain what's happened here is that Meghan has sent some gifts. In this case, it was to their good friend, Prince Harry's best mate now, Nacho Figueras, the polo player. And he'd posted something on social media with an image of his very sweet dog with some dog biscuits and also raspberry jam that's come from Meghan's new brand, American Riviera Orchard. And that's what had been posted. But this is the problem of their sort of marketing strategy. So Meghan's done these publicity stunts, essentially, where she sent out goods and encouraged friends and influencers to post about them. But you never know when they're going to do it, do you, or what they're going to say. So it's completely out of your control. So yes, you get great publicity when these people say, "Oh, I've got my latest jam," but it's very embarrassing if it's just before, Catherine's reappearance at Trooping. It can look very pointed.
You could specify, as journalists, we are all given information and sometimes told you can't release this until this date. I mean, so whatever the truth is, Rebecca, it does look a bit clumsy, doesn't it?
But it is clumsy. I mean, look, you can't expect them to have known that announcement was coming out because, as we've discussed a lot on the programme, people don't tell them things because they don't trust them. So I don't think they would have known, but I think it just, again, shows why Queen Elizabeth was so very, very wise in saying you can't have a half-in, half-out job. You know, if you're going to do what you're going to do, go off and do it outside of the royal family.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Natasha? There's marketing for influencers and then the way the royal family does things, and they're so disparate, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, for example, as we've discussed on the programme, the King recently with the King's Foundation has celebrity ambassadors like David Beckham, but then that's organised by a whole team. And then, there are pretty strict parameters about how that works and what that work involves kind of on behalf of the charities. And normally when the royal family do work with celebrities, it is for that charity. And this kind of thing, which is, basically what influencers do. You know, a brand sends off clothes to someone and then they post them wearing it. We all kind of see that a lot online. But then, as Richard mentioned, you don't know what they're going to say. It's a much more informal strategy that can backfire on you.
I have to say, this whole thing is very odd, because think about it. What is it? It's all meant to drum up publicity for Meghan's new brand. But the brand hasn't actually been launched yet. You can't go on a website and buy any of her goods.
Also, I noticed the jam had like a number on it as well. So it's like the inference is that there's not much of it being produced. So
I think this one was 1 out of 2 as well, which suggests there's only 2 jars of jam that have been produced.
Yeah, and I was told that the strawberry jam they sold was made with strawberries from their garden. So I don't quite understand how that relates. I think it is genuinely just a publicity stunt for the brand to get people talking about it. But we'll
is there ever going to be a scenario in which they could say to the palace, "We've got this product coming out. Have you got anything that it might be treading toes on," or is that just not going to happen?
They don't have those conversations now. I mean, they really don't. I mean, sometimes their kind of fandom tries to say, well, the King, when he was Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, had his kind of, Highgrove range and his Dutch Organics range. But again, it goes back to the point you're saying, everything they do the money doesn't go into their personal pockets. It's for charity. So it's a very different setup. But no, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure I'm right on this, the lines of communication between Montecito and Buckingham Palace are non-existent.
Indeed. Now, Richard, you've written a fascinating newsletter about your conversation with a friend of Prince William this week.
Yes, I mean, this relates to last Saturday, Trooping the Colour. Obviously, it was wonderful to see Catherine back on the balcony, but the viewers might have noticed just how empty that balcony looked. You think back just a few years, and it used to be packed with all the extended royal family. But that policy was changed by Queen Elizabeth because of Harry and Meghan.
Right.
It was too awkward not to invite them onto the balcony, but then to invite kind of minor members of the family. So they had this new policy of just the working royals up there. What I was told was that, unfortunately, from my point of view, because I don't really agree with it, but Prince William plans to stick with his father's view of this slimmed down monarchy. What this means in effect is that there won't be any new working royals.
Right.
So, you know, Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, is the youngest working royal other than William and Catherine, and she's 60 next year. And the others are even older. The Duchess of Gloucester, it's her birthday today. You know, happy birthday, she's 78. Or we've got the Duke of Kent, who was on the balcony, is, I think it's 88. You know, so they're of an age, and there won't be any new ones. He won't be asking his cousins, you know, Beatrice, Eugenie, or Lady Louise Windsor, to be full-time working royals. So that it's very significant and changes the whole nature of our monarchy.
Well, they're going to be spread rather thinly then, aren't they? And Rebecca, you could say that even if William wanted to carry on with this policy, once that monarchy is slimmed down, if they decide that they need to fatten it up again, that's a hard sell to the public, isn't it?
It is financially, and it's something if he was going to do, he might have to even fund out of his own pocket. I mean, the one thing I would say is I think the reason why monarchy in this country has survived for, you know, as long as it has, you know, many, many centuries, is because it does evolve over the years. And although we saw Queen Elizabeth as a very steadying presence, behind the scenes she was constantly, you know, adapting and changing. And I wonder if in a decade or so's time the public appetite might have changed again, and they might actually just feel happy with that kind of core nuclear family that is William, Catherine and their children. You know, who knows? But I think it would be very difficult for him to kind of go back and start drawing people in again. That said, I know we kind of differ on this, Richard. I was really touched by the scenes we saw at Ascot this week. When you saw William was there on Wednesday, and as guests you had Zara, Mike, Beatrice, Eugenie, and there was great pictures of them all in the kind of paddock together, and Zara with her arms slung around William, and you could see such a great bond between them. And it would be nice, I think, maybe even if they weren't full-time working royals, to try and bring that energy and that youthfulness and that clear, brilliant relationships they have together, maybe to the fore a little bit.
Come on, Zara and Mike Tyndall would be great full-time
yes,
royals.
they
It
would.
does seem like a practical solution, doesn't it?
Well, it just depends about your sort of concept of the monarchy. So Prince William, by all accounts, wants a sort of European style, like the, you know, Spanish royal family and others, where it is just that nuclear family.
What do you think going forward, Natasha, as the young person on the panel?
Happy to speak on my behalf.
Voice of the youth. Voice of the youth is about to speak. Hush now. Voice of the youth. What you know, as we sort of like age out one generation of royalists. What is the perception? What is the appetite for that royal family, in your view, amongst younger people?
I think the Prince and Princess of Wales are very popular, as are their children. I think everyone can see that they're adorable, and I think the fact that they are the future of the monarchy is something that is pretty popular. Equally though, speaking on the topic of Zara and Mike Tyndall of course was on I'm a Celebrity a few years ago, which a lot of my friends know and love and watched him on that, so he is also very popular because of that. But I think, you know, particularly with the Wales family as the future, I think the biggest problem, in my opinion, that the royal family have is apathy, and you can't help but look at the Wales family. You know, they're just very eye-catching and engaging, and people love to follow them on social media, which they're really good at boosting. So yeah, I think the prospects are looking okay.
So your job's safe for now. That's good as we move forward. Now, Richard, what could all this mean for our friends in Montecito, Meghan and Harry?
Yes, I mean, remember that when Prince Charles then had the plans about the slimmed down monarchy, Harry was very much part of that. We saw that on the balcony at Queen Elizabeth's Diamond Jubilee in 2012, where it was just Harry and his brother with Camilla and the King and Queen Elizabeth then. Yeah. And so he was central to those plans. You know, Charles thought when Harry had a family, they would be carrying out engagements, they would be sharing the duties with William. So I think time is running out. You know, if Harry wants to come back at any stage, he needs to do it while his father is still king, because I really do think that when Prince William is king, would he even take the calls from his brother? Can you imagine? I really can't see him letting Harry come back and have a role again. They are irrelevant now. They're just not wanted as part of the monarchy.
Oh, never say never, Richard. It's family. Never say never.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps, who knows? Maybe there will be some radical change, but it's hard to see now, particularly when all the focus is on jam.
We've seen stranger fictions become truth in this family, I think. Let's see. Now, but Natasha, on the subject of William, we should mention that we did get a very sweet picture of him, albeit the back of his head, for Father's Day.
Yes. Yeah, it was a picture of William with the 3 children. I think it was taken again by the Princess of Wales in Norfolk. We know that they love to holiday there, and they were standing on a beach, and there was a little message from the 3 children, which is the first time I think that they've shared a message on social media. So, yeah, it was heartening to see, but maybe it would have been nice to see their faces.
Oh, I thought it was really cute.
I thought it was kind of poignant. It was them, I wrote a big piece about it, about how I thought that picture was Catherine's tribute to her rock. And, William standing there with his arms firmly around his children, drawing them together. I thought that was quite symbolic and a sign of, we are a tight family unit.
And he's celebrating his birthday tomorrow.
He is, yeah. He's 42, Friday. We haven't been told much. I was trying to find out whether they might be kind of issuing a photograph to mark the occasion. I think it's 50-50 at the moment because they don't always do it unless it's a really big birthday, and obviously they feel that they've put the picture of William out at the weekend. But very happy birthday doing the school run or whatever he's doing.
And to my baby sister, who is William's birthday twin in Australia. Can you believe it?
You see, you were always destined to do this job.
Yeah, I know. I always remember William's birthday. Now, it's time, fanfare, for the Princess Anne section of the show, Rebecca.
We need a fanfare, I think, for this.
I keep saying I want you to take us to Windsor, where you saw her this week for a very special occasion. These special occasions are just coming thick and fast.
And actually, this is a brilliant week in the royal calendar for it. So the Monday of Royal Ascot Week always starts with the Order of the Garter, the most ancient order of chivalry in the UK, dates back to Edward III, and he was so inspired by the tales of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table that he decided to create his own group of knights.
But why does it have such a kinky name?
Table.
Why is it the Garter?
Because they wore garters to hold up their stockings then, in a very that way, Joe. You've really put me off my track now.
Always wanted to ask.
You're so naughty. So it's and what's very special about it is it's not a government appointment. It's an appointment by the sovereign for people who've either served the Crown or done extraordinary public service. So you do have a few kind of prime ministers, ex-prime ministers there, but you've got senior members of the royal family. You've got, this year, for the first year, Lord Lloyd Webber, the kind of celebrated British composer. And they have a lovely lunch up at Windsor Castle where the new people are installed. Duke of York was there for that lunch, I think, as we discussed on the programme the other week, but is not allowed to process now in public. And then they have a massive procession, great big kind of blue velvet mantles and ostrich plumed hats. People cheer them as they go down. They have a service at St George's Chapel and they come back up in the landaus.
And what was Anne doing?
Anne was there looking just utterly splendid as usual, holding her own. I also think on Anne it's worth mentioning how brilliant she was at trooping the colour, because she was on horseback with William and Edward and she was given Noble, who was the King's horse, who was given to him by the Canadian police. And Noble is a spirited horse at the best of days and was definitely giving Anne a run for her money. And she showed what a brilliant horsewoman she was, kind of sitting there astride this horse, just kind of trolling it basically with one hand.
Yeah, and I have to say, when the rain started, there was also thunder and lightning, which obviously really freaks horses out, and they were getting a little skittish. But not Princess Anne's horse. It was
she had it well under control. What it was told.
Yeah. No human or beast messes with Anne.
No, exactly. So she's had a good week, and actually, I should mention we met some more Palace Confidential fans at Order of the Garter.
Oh, you're just bragging now, Rebecca.
No, but who brilliant. The ladies who'd come over from Belfast and all, I would suggest, good Palace Confidential fans were watching the Order of Garter with a bottle of rosé.
On brand.
Ladies
very
after
on
my
brand.
own heart.
I thought we weren't supposed to mention wine to you today, Rebecca. We'd made the point before, Richard, that it's one event that William never looks particularly comfortable in. Do you think he's just embarrassed by the big plume? I don't know. Do you think he might want to change this Order of the Garter in the future?
We really miss Catherine at Monday's ceremony because she usually likes to attend and tease William about his
Just to rub it
outfit
in.
with his velvet and his feathers and stuff. Yeah, you could say it's one of those events that, you know, with William's modernisation of the monarchy, potentially might get rid of. But I hope not. I hope he sees the fun of it. I mean, it's just wonderful seeing the colours and all the pageantry and, you know, for lots of us, that's what we kind of love about the royal family. Obviously, there's something slightly absurd about it, but that's
kind of great.
That's part of the fun. So if you get rid of all that, you may as well get rid of the whole monarchy. You know?
Oh, well, I can't believe that those words just came out of your mouth, Richard Eden.
Well, I think,
Can you
Richard,
imagine?
I think safely say there's certain kind of what we call the hardy annuals in the royal calendar they'll keep, and I think that would be one of them.
Sorry, William, you've got to keep that plume on. Well,
His paranoia over his bald spot. With Rob Shooter of Shooter Scoop reporting that Hollywood is now buzzing over the Sussexes' no hair, no share rule. You have to laugh at this, you really do. Especially given Harry was the one who made such a big deal about Prince William's fading hairline in his autobiography Spare. Of course, I would argue that William is absolutely owning his looks in his 40s. He gives men like me in our 40s real inspiration, whereas Harry looks a total mess, clearly lacking in physical and personal confidence. But here is the scoop from Mr. Rob Shooter, who reveals that Meghan and Harry are now demanding final approval on every single photo taken of them. Insiders swear it's all because of his bald spot. Yes, his bald spot. One Hollywood insider telling him they're obsessed with image control. Every photographer, every magazine, every event, Meghan's team insists on approving shots before anything goes public. And it's not about artistic direction, it's about Harry's hair, or what little is left. Apparently, Harry's thinning crown has become a very touchy subject indeed inside Team Sussex. He'll joke about it with friends, but Meghan, oh no, not a laugh. She wants him to look strong, youthful, like the prince she married. Not the one California Sunshine is slowly exposing. Sources say their reps have even gone head-to-head with event organisers and editors. One media insider whispered to me they'll approve 10 pictures and reject 100. If Harry's bald spot catches the light wrong, it's automatically a no. A royal source summed it up perfectly. They left Palace Life to be free, but now every photo has to be filtered. Meghan calls it brand protection. Honestly, at this point, the bald spot has more security than the crown jewels. Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, the problem that they've got is that you can do all of the picture approval in the world when it comes to official shots or shots from events that Harry is speaking at, but it doesn't stop the fact that Harry is someone who is pictured. Harry is someone who is subjected to paparazzi in California. So I don't really think the picture approval is going to solve the problem of his thinning crown. What do you make of this, Brittany?
Especially, I think this is absolutely hysterical, especially since we know that Harry sort of made fun of his brother in his book for his own thinning hairline, that now Harry's experiencing it is rather ironic and funny. And that Harry as well, like he has a Friar Tuck effect. It's very prominent in the back. And
Yeah.
to me, it looks like he's clinging on more desperately, which actually makes the entire situation even worse. And I'm not surprised. But the thing is, you take pictures of Harry and a lot of them, it's very apparent. And if he was self-conscious about it, hey, get hair plugs. He had years to do that. He didn't. And now this is the consequence. And he would be much better off actually just accepting his balding hairline instead of trying to mask it in pictures, because it ain't gonna work. But we know he has photoshopped, or somebody had photoshopped more hair on his head, probably on his behalf many a time. So Harry's definitely self-conscious about this, but if he wanted to change it, hey, go ahead and change it. But it's too late now, and he has to accept his sort of Friar Tuckness, you could say.
Indeed, and we're just looking at these pictures of William. And I think the contrast, Brittany, is really significant. is it not? Because there's a confidence to William in his 40s. It's very obvious that he knows who he is now. I have to say, Brittany, William and I are very similar ages, and I think I feel the same as William, actually. There's something in your 40s where you don't feel desperate to follow trends or anything like that. You know who you are, and I very much get that sense that William is in that place. Harry really has not embraced his age at all.
No, and what's interesting as well in the shooter report is that when it comes from Meghan, who's kind of really obsessed with keeping, her prince looking young, William has a very confident, very self-assured relationship with Catherine as well. And she is not there obsessing over his looks. She loves him because of William. And William, I think, has a confidence in that. And he has a confidence in his role. And he's not there trying to be somebody he's not. He could have also gotten hair plugs if he wanted to. And he's like, it's fine. This is part of life. Embracing this is just going to be part of his reality. And I think it's quite smart of him to do and not be so self-conscious of it. Whereas Harry is self-conscious, he's obsessed, he is wildly insecure about it. And William comes across as a complete opposite and as a leader, whereas Harry is just sort of a follower and just not sure what to do in this particular situation. William, of course, has gone down the smarter path, I think, and just embraced life, and aging is just part of life.
It really is. It really is. And it's about how you age. And also there's a sort of karma to Harry. It's like, I'm sorry, if you're going to hassle other people for being bald, and if you're going to hassle your brother for losing his youthful looks, then actually we might start feeling the same about you, Harry. Now, what's interesting is that to kick off the year, Brittany, Harry and Meghan have actually been told to stay home. In bombshell new advice delivered by the top US media operative Paula Frolic in the Times newspaper, which is really interesting, actually. The Times newspaper, which obviously views itself as the newspaper of record here in the United Kingdom. And this open letter is designed to actually advise Harry and Meghan practically on how they can move on from their annus horribilis. And Paula Frolic says she's not a publicist for either, but this is the best advice they're going to get, and they don't even have to pay me. So, Brittany, let's go through this advice, and I'll get your take as we go. So first to Meghan. She writes, I understand why it may be difficult to see your father, Thomas Markle, ever again, given how he has been trading your name for cash ever since you were engaged to Harry. However, in the spirit of graciousness, now that he is struggling with heart disease, has lost a leg due to complications from diabetes, and is struggling to pay for his care, you should do the right thing and cover his hospital bills. You made millions last year, and it would do wonders for your public image, which you say is based on kindness and compassion. As of now, a GoFundMe to pay for his bills asks for a mere $12,000, roughly the price of a Chanel dress you obtained after a shoot for the cut. Brittany, that first piece of advice, I think it's completely spot on. Of course, she should be paying for Thomas Markle's hospital bills. I'm in touch with the family. She's not. Okay, half of you watching this are not subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken, and the best way you can support what we do is by hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes.
She should, Dan. This is just so easy. It's such an easy slam dunk for Harry and Meghan here to make at least somewhat amends. Maybe she says, well, I don't really want to have a relationship with him, but as an honorable daughter, I will pay for his hospital bills. I mean, he's in the Philippines. They can't be an outrageous amount. And she has millions of dollars. She should be able to do this. But Meghan just doesn't really care. Again, we have seen this endlessly. She is perfectly willing to throw people away once it's convenient. And that's just a bad reputation to have. This would be such an easy, positive fix for her. And I would argue as well, mending the relationships with the royal family would help her public reputation too. But this is definitely just paying for her father's hospital bills. She doesn't even have to talk to him, just pay for them and just let it rest. That might be actually hugely helpful for her, because right now she looks sort of heartless and cruel.
She does indeed. But I think she doesn't just look that way. I think she is that way, which is why it's quite interesting, because do we really want PR to make someone look better than they actually are? But anyway, Paula Frolic goes on, which brings me to another point, Meghan. Stop taking freebies. It might be okay in the world of the D-list, but to the rest of us, it just looks tacky because we know you can afford to pay. You've already been labelled a grifter by your former boss at Spotify. Let's not give anyone any more reason to pour gasoline on that fire, shall we? But the thing is, Brittany, she is a grifter. She is obsessed with freebies. She always has been. It drives her.
It does. She has always been D-list status, Stan. That has always been her mindset. It has never changed. And that's part of her problem, is that she never evolved. She's still stuck in that D-list mindset. And yeah, getting a freebie every once in a while, I mean, we all enjoy that. But I think it looks sort of tacky for her to seemingly demand or want every single outfit that she wears in a photo shoot. I feel like that's very excessive. We don't really see most celebrities do that. They understand, hey, I'm wearing this once and then I give it back. That's fine. And they go and buy their own thing. But Meghan just never has wanted to do that. She should just stop taking the freebies and actually, start to work. Stop grifting and actually work for a living, because that's not really what Meghan is doing. And that, again, is huge part of her problem back in 2025. And I think even now and probably into the future as well. This is sound advice.
Paula goes on, what else? Yes, stop giving us glimpses of your children on social media. You should be able to stand on your own 2 feet. And while your son and daughter might be the only 2 things you have left that Americans actually care about, teasing us with blurred photos of them makes you look like a terrible hypocrite, especially after you moved 5,000 miles away from Harry's hometown for privacy. And Brittany, we know that. We know that's what Harry wants. But she's never going to stop doing it, Brittany, because it is all she's got. And she covets what the Kardashians have. She covets what the Beckhams have. And unfortunately, despite all of Harry's public posturing, arguably the only way for the Sussex brand to renew is to use the children. So I think this is great advice from Paula Frolic. Do I think she's going to take it up? Absolutely not.
No, and she knows that the kids are the last card she has to play in many ways. I've always suspected that when things were at their worst, that's when she's going to start pulling out the kids quite a bit more. I would imagine this year, because 2025 ended in such a mess, that we'll probably get full-headed picture shots of the kids this year, because this was never really what Meghan Markle wanted. She only really wants control over the situation, not really to actually protect her kids' privacy. Because if she really wanted to protect their privacy, hey, don't post really anything about them. A lot of celebrities do that. They don't post about their kids. They don't really even talk about their kids much because they respect their privacy. Meghan is constantly talking about the kids, especially Lily. Everything she does is for Lily's sake. And it also, I always think as well, poor Archie, because he just doesn't seem to matter to her quite as much. But looking at this whole thing together, I think the teasing of the kids, I think most people just find it obnoxious. And if Harry and Meghan seemingly, as I said, in the folding of Archewell Foundation, they want their kids to be more a part of everything, they're going to start pulling out the kids a lot more to gain that public sympathy. And it's just a cheap ploy. And I just don't think it'll really work, because unfortunately, for them at least, I don't think people care that much really about their kids.
Paula Frolic then moved on to Harry. Poor misunderstood Harry, she said, I think with tongue firmly in cheek. Here is my advice to you. Next year, when your father and brother make state visits to the US, lie low. As in, no social media posts, no interviews, and above all, no competing engagements. I know this will be hard for you, but trust me, you and your wife look petty and spiteful when you try to hijack the attention. Who can forget your flashy Remembrance Day visit to Canada in November at the same time your brother was trying to promote his Earthshot Prize in Brazil? getting in the way of actual royals trying to maintain the family business, which includes diplomatic duties, makes you look vengeful and jealous. And Brittany, I think this is great advice, but he's never taken that advice. Even after that promise, right, at the meeting organised by Meredith Maines, now departed, with Tobin Andre, communications director at Buckingham Palace, you know, one of the key courtiers for King Charles, even at that meeting where there was this promise that we're going to start sharing diaries, Harry decided to screw over his brother. So I just don't think this is something that Harry will be able to do. I don't think he can ever sit back and let the royal family get the right attention that they deserve. So again, good advice, but nothing from the past 6 years suggests that he will ever stop competing with his brother and his father for media attention at key moments for the British royal family. But first, have you ever actually looked at the nutrition label on a normal bag of crisps? You'll usually find a complete chemical cocktail, seed oils, MSG, artificial dyes, vague natural flavours, and a list of ingredients that reads more like a science experiment than a snack. And then we wonder why we feel bloated, tired, and frankly a bit grim after we eat them. That's why I was so interested when I discovered Massa. They're part of this growing real food movement, bringing back the kind of food our grandparents ate before snacks started being made in labs. Now, Massa's tortilla chips contain just 3 ingredients: organic, nixtamalized corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it. So no seed oils, no mystery chemicals, just real food. And here's the crucial bit. They don't just avoid all the rubbish, they actually taste incredible. Snacking on Massa chips is nothing like eating regular chips. With Massa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic. There's no crash, no bloat, no horrible sluggish feeling afterwards, because they're made with real food. They're more satisfying too. So you're not mindlessly inhaling half a family bag and still feeling hungry afterwards. And if you love Massa, you will also love their sister company, Vandy Crisps. You know how much I love crisps, but Vandy makes the most delicious 3-ingredient potato chips. Proper flavour, proper crunch, without the garbage ingredient list. So ready to give Massa or Vandy a try? You can use the code OUTSPOKEN for 25% off your first order at massachips.com or vandycrisps.com. Or it might be easier, you can simply click the link in the video description box below or scan the QR code on screen to claim this delicious offer. And for our viewers in the United States, Massa and Vandy are now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a couple of bags before they're gone. But now, back to the show.
It seems that Harry just has this massive inferiority complex and just a massive chip on his shoulder because, Dan, that advice is so good. And it's so obvious because even Harry this year, he's like, well, you know, I wasn't trying to compete with my brother. Like, how dare you even suspect that? And it's like, but you do this all the time. Like, we are recognizing something. It's like, you're not being very clever here, Harry. None of us are stupid, although I think Harry and Meghan think most of the public is stupid. And he went down that path, and it's like, that's just not a good thing to put out there. And it's just so easy when your family is going to be out doing something, tripping the color, what have you. Just stay home. Don't do anything. Don't post anything. Because it does make him look petty and vengeful and spiteful and all these sorts of things. It does put a negative spin on even what Harry believes are positive engagements for himself. It puts a negative spin on it because he looks like he's trying to compete. And the reality is he can't totally compete. And he would be on so much better footing with the public if he just let the family be the family and do his own thing without any trying to avoid obviously clashing, but at the same time, just doing things for himself. But Harry and Meghan just set up this lose-lose scenario for themselves where they're always trying to compete. They're always trying to reach for this kind of cosplay working royal role that they always wanted to have and were denied. And unfortunately for them, I think it's playing completely wrong, and they need to move on from this shtick, but I just don't think Harry can.
No, he can't, because the next piece of advice is something he should have moved on from long ago. Paula Frolick writes, enough with the lawsuits. Trust me. The British press get it by now. You're not to be trifled with, but even the judge in your case against the Daily Mail said that resolving your allegations had become extremely complex and an involved sideshow, and noted the costs and resources that would be devoted to resolving the factual dispute would, I am satisfied, be out of all proportion to any possible evidential value. But Brittany, he is pushing ahead with this case against the Daily Mail, totally motivated by vengeance. And I think this will be the final nail in his credibility coffin.
I mean, Dan, if he loses this case, he's going to be out potentially millions upon millions of pounds, especially if he's sort of the sole man left standing from the defense side. All of this is just a fool's errand. He's going on and going to litigate things that were sort of resolved years ago and are not really even an issue anymore, because the perspective Harry should have is, how can this case change things now? Well, I think the answer is it won't change anything. There's just no point to it. All the actors have changed, the methodologies for the media has changed, and there has been a change of attitude in the media since the early 2000s. And so Harry just needs to move on, but he's obsessed with the past. And again, this is why I think Harry lives so much in the land of delusion, is that he's hoping if he wins one of these cases, he's hoping if he gets his security back, that his life will be better and somehow fixed. And that just isn't going to be the case. Unfortunately for Harry, I think he picked the wrong spouse, and most of his troubles have come from that. You know, be careful who you marry, and you might avoid some of these catastrophic problems. But I think Harry needs to have some real consequences. And I think if he lost this case, I think that would be, you know, a great way to actually, for Harry to realize, oh, some of this is just really not working for me. But he's just going to keep continuing, I think, because again, until other aspects of his life are fixed, he's just not going to stop.
And then Paula moved on to advice to the couple, to both Harry and Meghan. And she writes, instead of just showing up to collect Humanitarian of the Year awards, try doing actual humanitarian work. Real humanitarians don't just helicopter in for disasters or holidays. They work tirelessly every day to make a situation better. Take the example of one company in your portfolio, Travelist, which has no clear message beyond making travel greener. Instead, I would suggest you recalibrate it to work with countries that want and need responsible tourism to bolster their economies and stabilize their political situation. Pick one or two countries like Gambia, Malaysia, or Uzbekistan, all of which are desperate for tourists, have historical or natural significance, and need a financial boost, and go from there. Meanwhile, enough with the pointless semi-royal junkets to countries like Colombia and Nigeria, where you may get royal treatment like you used to, but it just makes you look desperate. Such good advice, Brittany, because this is the problem with the humanitarian work, and we've seen it with the collapse of Archewell. Because it is so once over lightly, so focused on PR opportunities for Harry and Meghan, people aren't even prepared to donate. And they have the time. At the moment, Brittany, according to their filings, they work about 1 hour a week for Archewell. That's why it has failed. There is so much they could do if they were true humanitarians. But again, what I would argue is that they're not. They never will be. So this advice will not be followed because they don't want to work hard for other people. They only want to work moderately hard in order to make big bucks for themselves.
They do. And when it comes to those trips to Nigeria and Colombia, I mean, they were basically sort of vacations. Like, there was no real point. They didn't really donate anything. They didn't really help the country in any tangible way. And they still want to do more of this nonsense in 2026. And the reality is, they're not humanitarians. They are just celebrities desperately in search of a willing audience to listen to Meghan's platitudes. That's what Meghan wants, is to talk at an audience. She doesn't want to actually help people. She only is interested, I think, in helping herself. I think Harry has maybe a smidge more of that humanitarian gene, but he's also lost Sentebale, and he's had his own disasters with African parks and other things. And so this couple, is not a humanitarian couple. They don't really care, I think, about others in any tangible way. I mean, with the folding of Archwell Foundation and the Parents Network, they paraded these parents who had the immense grief of losing a child on CBS only to drop them a year later as if they didn't really care at all. Harry and Meghan only care about themselves, and that's why Archwell Foundation has failed, and that's why I just don't think there's really any future for them as humanitarians, because they made it clear they're not. They just want the applause from the audience, and that's it. And unfortunately for them, it's a much dwindling audience. And I just don't know how many countries are willing to host them for really no particular reason other than for Harry and Meghan to grab a couple of headlines.
And then finally, the last piece of advice from Paula Frolic is this: stay home. Even if you are invited to the Met Gala, 2026 should be a nesting year. So nest. The American public is worn out by your product drops and your 5-year-old complaints about family and your insistence that you're authentic and desperate for privacy when nothing could be further from the truth. In short, stay home, regroup, attempt to do some actual prolonged good, and start listening to the people, be they PR, film, or charity professionals, or even average working people who don't live within the rarefied compounds of Montecito. Do it for yourselves, your children, and honestly, all of America. We're tired of your constant chasing for clout, and we need a rest. Don't we all, Brittany? Don't we all?
Oh, man. This was so good. And it's so true. Harry and Meghan, not only do they need to stay home, they just sort of need to shut up, especially Meghan. She is now regurgitating like the same 5 stories, and she's even elaborating on the dish soap story because now it happened during the riots in Los Angeles in the mid-90s. And so this comes from the fact that there is just nothing deeper to them. And they might actually have something to share and something to accomplish, and as ever, might have been a greater success if it wasn't so incredibly rushed. They need to actually go home, regroup, rethink, and re-strategize. But unfortunately, I think one of the bigger things that obviously the author mentioned is that they aren't taking advice from people. They should be, and they aren't. Meghan thinks that she's smarter than them, that she understands things better. And I think the last 5 years have proven that that is actually not the case. Listen to the professionals. Don't jump on a jet to France when you say how much you want to be there for your kids every day. Jump on a jet to France just to walk a Balenciaga show after their terrible sort of campaign with children. I mean, it's just obviously such a PR mess. They step into obvious disasters every day. It's why Meredith Main's left. You can't control somebody who just has no self-control. And Meghan doesn't have any. Harry doesn't have any. And really, I truly believe, Dan, Harry and Meghan could have been wildly successful in the States if they had played their cards right. But they were too anxious. They had no strategy. And unfortunately for them, I don't think either of them have much talent either. And so they've ended up in this absolute mess. And I think if they had listened to a lot of the professionals they hired and who then quit along the way, they'd be in a much better spot than they are now. But will they be quiet in 2026? They've been somewhat quiet recently, but I highly, highly doubt it. We'll get more interviews. We'll get more sly digs at the royal family because they can't help themselves.
Of course. And remember, the reason that we keep them honest is because they want to destroy the British monarchy. I wish people would remember this, Brittany. That's why people like you, people like me, are so determined to hold them to account, because the royal family is in a tough place in a lot of ways. And these two still want to destroy it. And they want to destroy it on lies. And that cannot be allowed to happen. And I do not think they are anywhere near finished in their mission. I think they'll fail, but I think that's why they absolutely have to be kept honest. But brilliant to have you back in 2026. Brittany, editor of RNN, the Royal News Network. You can subscribe on YouTube and X, of course. And if you do want to